So, can we dry our clothes outside during the winter? Well, yes we can, but there are a few things that we need to be aware of here in order to do it properly. So let me just explain a little bit about how it works, and then I can give you some great tips on how you can do it successfully as well. So the first thing that we need to talk a little bit about is how the actual drying process works here. There are three elements that we need to be aware of. Now the first one is the temperature of the actual liquid in the fabric that you're trying to dry. And obviously we have this working very much against us here when it's the middle of the winter and it is very cold. Now don't worry, you can actually dry your clothes down to really cold temperatures. As you can see here, it's actually frost in the ground, and I think the temperature right now is about 3 degrees Celsius, which equates to about 37 or so Fahrenheit. So how this works when it gets this cold is that instead of like the normal process of the water molecules in the fabric evaporating off, is that you get something called freeze drying, and essentially you just get gas flowing off the clothes. Now these are already pretty dry, so you won't really see any of that now, but just know that it's not a problem. But it does take a whole lot longer when it's this cold to dry clothes outside. Now the second factor that we need to keep in mind is actual humidity in the air. So I decided to do this now while it's not that humid outside. So when the water molecules are trying to escape from your fabric and get into the air, it gets a lot more difficult when it's humid, as they don't really have anything to bind to in the air. So it takes a lot longer again to dry your clothes. Now this can actually be a huge problem when it's not winter as well. Thankfully today it's pretty mild and not humid at all. So we have that to our advantage at least. Now the third thing that you need to keep in mind when you're drying your clothes is the airflow. Now, thankfully we have some nice airflow here, and this really helps us. That way when the vapor starts coming out of the clothes, or the gas in this instance, it can actually flow away. Now, if it's really still, and especially if it's humid too, what often happens is that the clothes start to dry, the water evaporates, but then it has nowhere to go in the area, so it just falls back down in the same area. So it will often just fall back down on the clothes, and it will take a lot longer again to dry them. So now that we know the three factors, how can we use this to our advantage? Well, it really all starts in the washing machine. So what you should do is that you should put on a washing program with a high spin cycle. This way the centrifuge will go very fast, and this will actually expel a lot of the water that is in the clothes. So this really helps speed up the drying process. Obviously you want to be a little bit careful about this if you have delicates that can't handle a high spin, but for regular clothes try to put something high on. I did write a guide about spin cycles a while back. I can link that down in the comments if you want to learn more about spin cycles. Also wrote a big guide on how to actually dry the clothes during winter. So if you want some more detail, as this is gonna summarized. Now the second tip that I want to give you is that you want to open up all the zippers, all the pockets, wring them out before you start hanging the stuff. This way you get a lot more surface area, and like we said, having a lot of airflow is important. When everything's open, not overlapped, there is a lot more wind that will be able to flow onto the clothes. Now when we actually get to the hanging part here, it can be smart to put a little bit of distance between them so that they have a lot of space between them. It's not really a big problem here, and they have dried fine, but that can really help as well. And I think more importantly, definitely use pegs when you put the clothes to dry. You don't want to overlap them. If you get like 2 layers, it's going to take forever to dry. You can actually notice the difference up here where there's a small fold compared to down here where you have no overlap at all. So if you take these tips into consideration, the clothes are going to dry a lot faster, but obviously it is winter, so it's going to take forever still. So you may want to watch the weather a couple of days in advance before you start to do this. This can also help with the humidity and airflow issue. If you have a little bit of wind, it's going to help a lot. Make sure it's low humidity. I mean, if you don't have a choice, you don't have a choice. Just make sure that you have at least no rain for a couple of days. And you should be good. Now, obviously, if the weather gets bad, you need to take the clothes down and take them inside like you always would. But that's the same precautions that you would have to take anytime, right? I'm planning to make a huge guide on how to organize your wardrobe coming up here. Should be done in a week or so. I'll put a link up here if it's already done. And yeah, so check that out, and I'll see you next time.